Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello, and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. And if you've been listening for a while, then you know that I always say the best nutrition plan is the one that you can stick to. Anything you do temporarily only produces temporary results. So if you want long-term change, then whatever way you go about losing the weight or getting fit, getting healthy is what you're going to need to do to keep it. Now, today we're going to talk about the best tracking tool. And if you're smart, which I know you are, then you know my answer. My answer is the best tracking tool is the one that you can stick to. Now, tracking doesn't necessarily have to be a forever thing. However, you do need to do it consistently to really help create that awareness and see where those changes need to be made. Tracking actually can be something you do long term. I know some of my clients stick with it because they just feel like it really, really helps them, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, and I'm going to explain why. So this episode is really just for you to have a good understanding about the pros and cons of all the different types of tracking tools out there, which method maybe you should give a try, or things that you should look out for to recognize that maybe it's not the best or effective tool for you. And so that way you have an idea of what to do going forward, because I do believe tracking is so helpful. Another quote I always say is, if you can track it, you can change it. So if we create that awareness, then we might be able to make some changes. But if we are not having any form of accountability or understanding of why it is that we feel hungry and tired at 2 p.m. or why it is that we raid the cabinets at night, this tracking can be data and can really help us to understand why we do the things that we do. All right, so we're going to go through all of the different tracking tools. Let's start with the basics. So I'm sure you're probably thinking of like the new stuff and the apps like MyFitnessPal and the Lose It app and all of those things. But we're going to go with the very basics, and why this might actually be a really good idea for you, because maybe you're already used too many things on your phone, or maybe you don't like to have your phone on you at all times, or maybe the information in the phone or in the app that you're using seems like too busy, too overwhelming. So the basic thing that you can do to help create awareness and track is basically just using pen and paper. Now, if you're thinking, well, Tony, it's not like the 1800s. I use my phone. I do have my phone everywhere I go, but I don't want to use an app. Well, then if you have the iPhone, we have the notes section in your phone, and I'm sure other phones have it as well. So you could just write down what you're eating. So the pro to that is you have control of what you write, in the sense that you don't just have to track the food. You can write even your mood before and after the meal. You can write down the time of day that you ate it. You can write down if you were hungry or not. Just having you put the pen to paper, that alone brings awareness to your food choices. So if you go to write down that you had 2 cookies and now you are thinking about having another 2 cookies, you think, wait a minute, I just had 2, there it is on the paper. Or if you have that thought like, oh, I didn't eat all day, and then you look at your paper and it's like, oh no, I had breakfast and lunch, I completely forgot. That is when it can be helpful. And it's really just, if you, obviously, like I was saying earlier, the best thing to do is the one that you can stick to. So if you just prefer writing down things and you're more likely to do that rather than enter it in your phone, then it's going to be a good tool for you. Now, the con to, I would say most of them is, it could be time consuming and a little bit inconvenient. So I know a lot of people say that with tracking, it's kind of like one more thing that they have to do. But to be honest, I think of it like food prep and meal prep. Yeah, it's one more thing you have to do, but it's going to save you time money, energy, and frustration in the future. So to me, it's like a little bit in the investment in the time bank. But yeah, so it could be slightly inconvenient. It could be something you're going to have to carry that notepad around with you, depending on the size of it. And then also you're obviously a lot more likely to under or overestimate the amount of food that you entered. You may or may not be measuring it. And so that could be kind of a downfall with that. Another tracking tool is simply just taking photos of your food. Now, this can be really beneficial because of that visual aid. So when you look down at the plate that you took a photo of and there's no color on that plate, you can easily see that you didn't have enough vegetables, right? Or if you've listened to the podcast before, you follow me, you know I'm a big advocate for the plate method. So making half of your plate non-starchy vegetables, a quarter protein and a quarter starch. And if you look down on that plate and it doesn't look like that, it's very easy to see. It's also like, I think that doesn't really take so much time. You know, you're just snapping a photo. Some people think that the con to it might be a little bit of embarrassing, but you know, today we live in the day of social media and taking photos of everything and tons of foodies. So I don't think it's that weird anymore. So you probably wouldn't have a problem with taking photos of your food. Now, the con is it doesn't measure portion control. You know, you might not take a picture of like those little snacks in between. And obviously it doesn't take into account, you know, the calories or the preparation method used. When you just look at a photo, you can't really tell how much oil was put in there, you know, or if it was made with butter or oil. You know, the nutrition part is a little bit hard to tell with that. Now, taking photos actually leads me to another way that you can create awareness, and another tracking tool is using those photos and actually posting them publicly. So a lot of people will create an Instagram account for accountability, or they'll post on their Facebook, and they'll make it public so that way they have someone to, you know, maybe make a comment or kind of just motivate them, and just push them, congratulate them, and it encourages them. So then it's like positive reinforcement. If someone's like, oh, wow, that looks so good, or I look forward to your post of what you're cooking, that's a healthy swap, you know, it's going to help you to want to do it more. So the other thing is like it can actually create a sense of community. So there are a lot of Instagram accounts out there that are people just trying to eat healthier, and they track their journey. And it's a really great way to find that support and discover. You can also use like the hashtags, and you can discover, you know, healthy recipes. And it's just I think a really, really awesome way to get ideas, to get inspired, and to inspire others. Now, the con to that is it is social media, and I think social media depends on how you use it. Some people might make some comments that you dislike. You might follow people that what are called abfluencers. I got that on a podcast once. I was interviewing someone, and she called them abfluencers, and I was like, yes, that's exactly what they are. They just have abs, but they have no credentials whatsoever, and they're giving out ridiculous advice, like telling you to never eat carbohydrates. So that could be a problem. You can get some comments on that. You can follow the wrong accounts. And there's always conflicting views. I mean, you have communities on social media that are anti-diet. You have communities that are all about healthy at every size. You have communities about being vegan. You have communities about being keto, about intermittent fasting. And it can be really overwhelming and really confusing and conflicting. And so therefore it might not be for you. And then also you might just be a private person, and that's just not something that you want to do, is put your stuff out public. So say you're a private person and you want to just kind of track on your own, but you also want to educate yourself about what you're actually eating, and maybe you want to learn a little bit more about carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and all of those things. Now, there are a ton of apps out there that can do that for you, so we're going to transition into apps as a tracking tool. I don't want to talk about apps that come with a program. So for example, like Weight Watchers and Noom, even my program, my nutrition coaching program, comes with an app. I don't really want to talk about that, because when it comes with an actual specified program, then there's usually guidelines, and it's a little bit more informative and hopefully, if you're following the guidelines and you're working with a professional at the same time, then you're going to get more beneficial use out of that app. Now, I'm talking more about like the ones that you can download for free, like MyFitnessPal or Lose It. And those can be really, really great because, like anything, it helps bring awareness. It teaches you. It's like you enter something like, maybe your Starbucks coffee in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I just had 400 calories of straight sugar and no nutritional value. That's crazy, right? So it's helpful in that way. It really, if you know how to use that tool, if you understand what a carbohydrate is, if you understand what a protein is, if you understand what a fat is, you could actually pay for the upgrade, and you can actually have it calculate your calories and your carbs and your protein and your fat different for each day. You could even modify to timing of meals. You can really get really, really clear on it. And not only does it tell you your breakdown of your macronutrients, but it also tells you your micronutrients, so you know if you're eating nutritious-based food. So if weight loss is a goal for you, you could go about that in being in a caloric deficit and having, say, 1,400 calories a day if you're someone who requires, say, 18. So you're in a caloric deficit, and you can do that by eating Oreos and a Big Mac, and you'll still be in that caloric deficit. But when you look at your micronutrient list, you're going to realize, like, oh my gosh, I have no iron, no fiber, no vitamin A, no vitamin C. Overall, I'm just not healthy. And so it can be really helpful in that sense, because it tells you that you're not only like hitting your calorie goals, but your actual overall nutrition plan. And it can be really, really beneficial for that. And MyFitnessPal is actually a really great app. I have a lot of my personal clients use it as an additional tool to the program, because I can actually look in and I help them through it. And it has a lot of food choices on there. So it has over 3.2 million food items, and you can even scan your label. Say you had like cereal, you can scan the label and it will automatically upload it for you. Now that's a really great benefit, because if you don't actually have a measuring cup or scale and you're entering your food in MyFitnessPal, you could be entering it incorrectly. But having that scanning bar allows you to know what you're eating is actually what you're eating. So that's beneficial for you. Now, the downside to that is that there's also, within those tons of foods you can choose from, there's also a lot of foods that like just random people enter. So it could be like a homemade spaghetti with meatballs, and they estimated it that it's 400 calories and 70 grams of carbohydrates and 20 grams of protein and blah, 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 blah. But really, we have no way of guaranteeing that. Now, they do have that little blue check mark, which helps you verify it, which is helpful. But in general, we don't really know if, in fact, it's been entered correctly. So sometimes I think the downside is a lot of people end up guessing, and so it's still creating awareness, but they end up guessing and it's not 100% accurate. The other downside to it is it can get really time consuming and monotonous, and a lot of people can get overwhelmed by those numbers. And then probably my biggest pet peeve is I know everybody that goes into MyFitnessPal, they set their goals to be the fastest way to lose weight. So the calories it ends up being is like 1,200 per day. And you guys know that that's not a good, hopefully you know this by now, 1,200 calories is like what people in nursing homes should get. So like if my grandmother, God rest her soul, was still alive, she would be 90, and that would be the amount of calories that she needs, because she's very sedentary, she's very old. But there's no reason why anybody listening to this podcast, my guess is you're between the ages of 18 and 70, and you should not be eating 1,200 calories every single day. So please don't do that. And also, it can, because it's overwhelming, it could lead to that kind of like screw it mentality. You track really well and you're doing really good in the beginning of the day, and then towards the end you're just like, screw it, I'm never going to reach my goals, or I feel like it's restrictive, I feel like I don't have enough, and then you just stop doing it. So then it falls into those inconsistencies, which is not really good. So once again, if you're going to use any of these tools, I do strongly encourage you that you do it with a nutrition professional. However, it's always great to explore, and just remember that everything that you do, there's feedback to that, and so pay attention to that. Now, this actually, what we just went over is the best tracking tools. Like, you really want to explore with those things, explore with each one, and see which one it is that really helps to drive your behaviors. Which one really helps you to not just create awareness, but create change. And the one that really gets you to change is going to be the one that you want to continue doing and that you want to stick to. Now, this is just a very, very sneak peek of Module 3 for my Healthy Livings Foundation course. And after I go over all of the pros and cons within the course, I actually also teach you how to read a nutrition facts label, and how to use portion control and portion sizes, and how to measure your food so you can accurately track if you are choosing to track in an app. And it also just goes to show how you can just use portioning and mindfulness as a way to bring awareness to your food choices and maybe not track at all. Because I think educating, it creates change alone. I think when you know better, you do better. And so knowing how to read a nutrition facts label is definitely going to help you with that. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic, and you also want to learn about a number of different topics and do it in a more of a kind of controlled setting where it really has your full attention. Maybe you're listening to this and you're driving right now. Maybe you want some extra accountability. My Healthy Livings Foundations course is perfect for you. It is a course that's going to take you about 4 weeks to complete. Each week you get 2 modules to go through. They range from 20 minutes to get through to some are an hour, depending on what the topic is. And it comes with an app, and in that app you can use it to track photos of your food, and I can check in on them and all of that. But the app also is just great for you to then message the other people who are doing the course for extra accountability. Message me along the way if you have any questions. It's honestly, guys, probably the best, and I'm not just saying this, it's probably the best thing for you if you are really someone who you're just really not sure where to begin and where to start. Before you can achieve any goal, you really need to have that solid foundation, and which is exactly why I created the course. So if you're interested, you're going to go to www.tipswithtony.com/courses. And if you want to learn more about it, there's a whole video about it. There's testimonials from other people that have been through the course, and you can enroll right there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, tipswithtony@gmail.com. And if you are loving this episode, or you just love the podcast in general, make sure that you're subscribed. When you subscribe to the podcast, you're the first to get notified when a new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.